Good evening, everybody. This is your host, Huge Pop from Huge Pop Entertainment. Tonight, I have the guy that went from California, GWF, ECW, USWA. He's wrestled in the 1990s. He is none other than the rugged one, Rodney Price. How you doing, to my friend? And look who we got here, the late comer of
Oh,
the
look who
show,
showed up, man. Hey, better
Rudy
late than never.
Gonzalez. What's
Great.
going on, my
Thank you
guys?
for having me, man. Thank you.
Thanks for coming
Rudy,
on.
glad to have you, man.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Rudy, thanks for showing up, man.
Man, we did a show last night in Westlaco. Had a sold out show, 300. It was at the Elks Lodge. And we have one ring. We're an indie wrestling promotion, so we have one ring. So we put the ring up right now, and they're going to do training while I come and talk to you guys.
Awesome. So, well, the first question I'm going to ask you, I asked your son about this first question. I asked everybody. I want to know what it was like as the rugged one growing up as a kid watching wrestling. What was some of the highlights that you got out of that?
It brings me back to summers in Indiana at my grandma and grandpa's house. They lived around Indianapolis area, so AWA was prevalent in that area. And man, I couldn't get enough. And I couldn't watch it with my mom and dad for whatever reason. But grandma and grandpa, they let me watch whatever I want. So I wanted to watch wrestling. And I remember the Kangaroos. I remember Nick Bockwinkel. I remember the Bruiser, the Crusher. And, as a kid, I was just like, I was hooked then. And I remember I was probably 6, 7, 8 years old. I remember looking back at my grandpa, and he was just like giving it to him,
Nice. That's awesome, man. So before we jump into your wrestling career, I hear you're a hell of an athlete. I heard you play some NFL football. So can you talk to us about what that was like in your life?
Okay. I went to San Bernardino Valley College. I was there for couple of years. We won a state championship there. We went undefeated. I got scholarship to Long Beach State, and I went there in the spring of '83 and went through spring camp and everything. And it was a change, but it was a good system. I liked the school. I liked the location. Very good education at Long Beach State. But from spring to fall, they changed the coach that was there left, and they brought in Mike Shepard. And when Mike Shepard came in, he had his people. It's kind of like changing a booker in wrestling. They've all got their own people.
Right.
So I was going to be back up to a senior anyway, and I was good with that. I played in college. I played nose tackle. I played defensive end. I played center, both guard positions, and I was a deep snapper. So I was comfortable. It's like the defensive coach was trying to recruit me. The offensive coach wouldn't let me go. But in practice, I went both ways on it. Played nose tackle. I played defensive end. I long snap. But when the coaches left and Shepard came in, everything changed. And he brought in his people, and there was I was going to be I'd been a senior that year, in the following year to take over whatever position they wanted me. I think at that time it was going to be center, but it didn't pan out that way. I ended up getting disgruntled, and I went and played in '83. I went and played semi-pro football, and I played, and then I went to somehow I ended up at Laverne University, where I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Ortmeyer. In fact, I think I might have been working out and training there. And he came out and talked to me and asked me what was going on. I told him. He said, hang around, don't leave, don't go anywhere. Come to find out, his son was Steve Ortmeyer, was a player personnel at the Raiders at the time. So they called me. I was going to get a look and all this, and I never heard back from him. I talked to his dad again. He goes, I don't know. Something happened at the Raiders with him. I don't know what's going on. I said, all right. And then I get a call from Steve Ortmeyer saying, look, things are not going to work out at the Raiders. You need to go to the Rams. So he got me. In fact, before that, they set me up a pro day at USC, where I went and did all the cones, the 40, and all that. And I had at that time, I had the Packers, the 49ers, the Rams, and the Raiders were there. And they were interested. But somehow I ended up going to the Rams camp and went through 6 weeks of camp, got cut, got brought back, got cut. I was a practice squad guy. And then I got cut again, and they said, probably won't bring you back. I said, that's fine. So I went and played. In fact, I started dabbling and getting into wrestling then. And then soon, about 2 weeks into training, I get called back. So I had to go back. And by this time, man, I'm all, I've always been stiff through my career, and I blame this part because it was like, I go there and I go back to the Chargers, as a matter of fact, is when I went down to San Diego. And they immediately put me on the practice squad, and we were always the scout team. Okay. And man, I went from, trying to work light to all of a sudden I'm getting bashed again. So that light clicked back on. So I hung with the Chargers, got cut. Went back and played semi-pro, started training again, and then I got the urge. Well, San Francisco called, said, "Hey, why don't you come up for spring ball? We're getting a rookie camp and come up." And I had three knee surgeries when I was in San Diego, and I'd lost my step. I knew that. I was 22, I think, and it was like I was slowing down. So what ended up happening, I still got a picture of it today. They took a picture. It was a brutal. We had 2 scrimmage games, and man, it was brutal. I was getting my ass kicked out there, and I finally, the picture I always call it's the crossroad. It's like right then and there is when I decided professional wrestling is the way it's going to go.
Props to you, man. Props to you. I mean, you tried the NFL and tried, man. I don't have nothing to say, but that's a great story. Thank you, man. Rudy, got anything for our guests?
Rod, so initially, who trained you for the, who broke you in?
I started with Mondo Guerrero, and
in California.
Yeah. We were training in a transmission shop in East LA. I remember it was, you already had LA smog, then you had all the exhaust coming in from working on the vehicles. And, for me, it was like, it was no big deal. I was traveling 2 hours a day, working out with him. And then something happened. I end up, I worked a few shows. I wasn't ready, but I worked a few shows, and Bill Anderson, I can't remember his name right now, but they carried me. They carried me a couple of matches, and Bill was like, man, I've met Red Bastien. Let me back up a little bit. I met Bill Anderson and Red Bastien shooting a commercial being a wrestler. And that's how I met him. And Red had given me his card and said, if you got to look, if you think you want to do this, here, come look me up. And I went and looked him up. He turned me on to Mondo Guerrero, and that's when I first started training. And I came back and trained a little bit with Bill Anderson. I trained with Louis McCauley. They carried me a lot. And then I ended up going out to Texas, and I knew enough to get by. And thank God, Killer Tim Brooks saw something in me that day when I got to Texas, and he took me in, and Killer polished me and helped me get going in about 6 weeks. Didn't charge me a dime, but he saw something in me. We became good friends then, you know, and up to his death, good friends. I'm still good friends with his son Clayton, and I owe Tim so much. But Killer really helped me because he was running shows. He ran 2 nights a week at the Longhorn Ballroom and the Stagecoach in Fort Worth.
Yep.
And I started working there, and then I started picking up some shows, world class spot shows, a little, you know, here and there. I needed to fill in, and I was wanting to work and trying to get as much in as I could. And then that's when I started with Kerry, because nobody knew me. I hadn't been on TV, and Jerry Jarrett at the time he wanted me to do this angle where I go after Kerry, you come out of the audience. You're just a man on the street. You know, you attack Kerry. Then finally, we'll do a main event with that for Kerry. And that was right before he went to WWF.
Right.
But I'll never forget, and Steve Austin remembers me to this day, I was told by Jarrett, look, I want you to go down. I had to get there early before the boys, before everybody else. And they had a seat for me. It was down front. He said, look, I want you to sit there. And the first time Kerry walks down past you, I want you to jump on him. Let them pull you out, you know, make it a shoot, let them pull you out and go. So it was all supposed to be on TV. But talking to Bill Colville, and later I got it from Kerry. He goes, Bill told me Kerry got the bright idea. He wanted to go down during intermission that aisle, so nothing was filmed. I jumped on Kerry. I mean, people were just screaming, yelling. You know, you touching a Kerry Von Erich out of, you know, I'm a nobody, and they were going nuts, and nothing was
No
on
film.
TV.
No film. That sucks. So I love your story about training. So you were trained by the legendary Rad Based, and what was one thing that sticks with you that he taught you?
Red taught me the main thing was find a finish that you don't go off your feet on. He said, you see these guys doing these great big bumps on their finish, but if you got to do that every night, that's going to take more of a toll on you than it is on him.
Okay.
So I tried to, you know, when I became a heel, you know, you never got to use your finish unless it was some jobber, you know. And so I don't know. When Steve and I were tagging, I can't even tell you what our finish was, but I kept on thinking, I kept on telling him, man, I got to come up with a finish that I won't leave my feet. I won't leave my feet. And I think out of panic and being still green in the business, I shot him in, gave him a power slam, you know.
All right. So in training, that wasn't only that you got trained. You actually trained your son. Am I right?
Yes.
How did that go?
That was right before I went to ECW. I had gone, worked for World Class USWA and probably GWF and probably 10 promotions after GWF died. The Sportatorium was just, it seemed at that time everybody wanted to run. I worked for Kevin. He was gonna reopen it up, and you know, he wanted to bring back the magic of the Von Erichs and all that. and that died. I was there when Crockett ran it, and Crockett wanted to turn back time. And, you know, by then everybody had music. When Crockett came in, there was no music. It was just dead walking out. And it wasn't getting over. And then you had CWA, I want to say, I may not be right, but they came in, and
Was that Continental Wrestling?
it could be, yeah.
Yeah.
And then that time I was like, man, I need a change, because you're working with, you know, you're just rehashing the same people. So I after that, I went to Germany and worked for Otto Vons in catch wrestling for a year or 8 months. And when I came back, that might have been when Continental was going, but USWA, ECW, and WWF at the time were doing combined shows in Memphis. USWA was the centerfold because it was out of Memphis. James was working, and I was brought in there, and I was going to be the top guy. I'm going to be the top heel. And that thing blew up because there was a lot of shenanigans going on with that, and that's a whole different podcast. But after that, I left and I went to Louisiana, and I was working with a friend of mine, and he had a little promotion. He said, "Man, why don't you promote my shows and run shows and do that?" So I did that for a little bit, and when I was had a ring set up, and we were running our own shows, and I met Rodney and Jazz, and that's when I started training them. And shortly after this kid comes in and says, "Hey man, you're my dad." I'm like, "Really?" You know, it's like, and he started spouting off some things and going back a little bit in time. And I was like, there's something to this. Did a DNA test because, you know, I've been in the business, you know, there's a lot of, didn't want to get worked. And sure enough, Logan from my loins, go figure. But I started training him, and he moved from Atlanta to New Orleans. I was in Lafayette, and he would drive from New Orleans to Lafayette about almost every other day. You know, it's 50 miles one way. It wasn't that big a deal if that's what you want to do. But he was trying to, you know, bouncing or DJing, whatever work he was doing. But I trained with him. I trained with him for a while and got him to a point to where I could use him. And we were putting on shows. Of course, you want to keep the payroll low. So, you know, what's better than having your son work for your own promotion? Rudy, you're always looking for a deal, right?
Yeah.
But I had him tag team up with One Man Gang. And we ran that in a couple of towns, and it went over well. And he was still training, working out, and something with the job. He wasn't making the money he thought he was going to make in New Orleans. Ended up going back to Atlanta and got into the power plant with Sarge after that.
So thank you for the story. And I guess it's time. We also take some questions from the chat. I don't have any questions for the chat, but I got a special guest.
Oh, now we break the fourth wall, Daddy.
Oh, Captain K-Fabe, huh?
Oh, surprise, surprise, surprise.
Oh, you get a little payback on Daddy, huh?
Yeah, I got a receipt about this fucking thing. Oh, surprise.
Why am I always looking younger than you? You know, Willow's getting jealous.
Because
She's
we're both,
thinking she made a bad choice.
well, you know, I think we're both endorsed by Just for Men, so it keeps us. You know, in wrestling, you subtract 10 years, you add 3 inches of height, and you add 20 pounds, you know? I mean, we age differently in parts unknown, you know?
So Logan asked me if Goth Black asked me if he could come on the show because he wanted to talk to his dad about
Well, yeah.
some training and some stuff that's going on. And I think he wanted to thank you, if I'm being honest. So Logan, you have anything to say to Pops?
Oh yeah, before we get to that, let's talk about the loving father I had when I was training. Let's talk about the TLC that I was given and how I was coddled and guided. So he mentioned this because I'm the fourth wall. Boom. So we're working a show, and I'm still green. I'm learning. So he insulates me. It's him and Rodney Mack against me and gang. So I'm very protected, very in there, whatever. And we're all green. Jazz green, I'm green, Rodney's green. So him and gang are kind of leading it or whatever. And it breaks into a schmoz at the end. And here comes Captain Crowbar Rodney with a chair shot the hard way, sideways, not over the top, but sideways, man. He bust my head open, dude. I'm out cold. Like Rodney, he's a crowbar anyway, man. So when he was green, he was a real crowbar. And I love him. I mean, he's my brother, but he opens me up sideways with a chair the hard way. I'm out cold on the floor. The melee's going on, whatever. And like I start coming to, man. I smell like beer and piss and whatever's on the floor, and I'm laying there. And I hear my dad, son, you all right? Son, you all right? I'm like, oh, I got concussion. Yeah, well, He's like, wow, you need some stitches for that. I'm like, well, it's, whatever, Friday night at 12 o'clock. I mean, where am I going to go, And he's like, well, go in the back. We need some super glue and glue you back. I'm like, what? I'm still green. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So I go in the back, they pick some super glue, put it back of my head or whatever. And man, my head is just pounded. Like I feel like I'm dying. I got a concussion. And I'm like, all right, Pop, I'm going to head back home. I got a long drive. Well, son, that ring ain't going to put itself back on the truck. So with the concussion, put the ring back on the truck, go to the practice space where we're practice at, unload the ring, set it up for practice the next day, and he expects me to practice. Everybody practice the next day with super glue holding my head together. I still got a big ass scar on the back of it from Rodney, And I'm like, so that's the loving treatment I got from Daddy. That's
yeah.
But like I was broke into old school, man. I'm grateful for that. I wouldn't want to be a sports entertainer. It's about the worst thing I think you call anybody. I never grew up watching my dad, Steve, and said, "Oh, I want to be a sports entertainer. I want to be a wrestler." That's what I always wanted to do. Sports entertainer to me is somebody who pretends to be tough on camera. Wrestler, somebody who's legitimately tough. You talk about Ole Anderson or Barry Windham or Ronnie Garvin or those guys. Those guys were legitimate badasses. They weren't, playing a script or whatever. He didn't get the name Hands of Stone for, a cute nickname, I mean, so I grew up that way. Like my workout partner going back to school, he paired us up. Like, you're with this guy, you're with this guy, and that's going to be your workout partner. So I was practicing the moves and, I get Rodney back, 6 foot, 250 pounds. I'm like, oh, Jesus, man. So like power bomb day and suplex day was a bitch, like Rodney's
And you set that all up, huh? And your dad set that up.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, you're gonna be good, and you're gonna be Rodney, and I'm like, oh.
What I got, but really, seriously, what I got.
Guys. That's as a booker back then. I was in 2 big guys. Green, it's got to be good.
And what I did get out of Goth Black, Mr. Price, is mad respect out of you taught him how to do it the right way. You taught him how to do it like people nowadays should know how to do it. And like you said, a lot of shooting, not a lot of this pussy ass.
Yeah, what they do now has no rhyme, no reason. It's such a spot fest. And it makes me angry because the people up there running it know better. And to let it go like that's a shame. That's disrespect to the business.
Everything I did, everything my dad put me through was training for wrestling. I mean, it was like, he at the time I didn't know it. I just thought he hated me or something, but like now, like I understand why. I would have never made it through the power plant if it wasn't for training with my dad. The way, I mean, it was out in a hot tin building, 102 degrees of humidity in Louisiana. We're sweating around. I'm puking, throwing up, passing out. And I mean, but I would have never made it through Sarge 101 without the training from my dad. It would have never happened. And I got to give an honorable mention here. Speaking of people being trained right, my sister Jazz is one of the new coaches at NXT. So. Right. Love you, Jazz. If there's anybody that deserves it, it's her. And I always say, Jazz is the best woman wrestler that ever lays a pair of boots. And I don't say that because she's my sister. I say it because it's facts. Name somebody who can touch her. Nobody. You know, I mean, so her being down there now, I think is going to revitalize the women's wrestling. It's not going to be any more of this, TNA powder puff bullshit. The Jazz ain't like that. I mean, real quick story. We're in the ring doing a round robin, like everybody's tagging in and doing moves and working with each other. And I'm green as piss, and we all are. So I get in the ring, and Jazz was a lot smaller. She was a little skinny girl. She just got into business. She wasn't, jacked like she is now. And I get in there and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to take it. So I'm like throwing these limp wrists. I'm like trying to take it easy on her. And she goes, whoa, stop. I'm like, what? She goes, when I'm in this ring, you treat me like a wrestler. Don't treat me like I'm some damn woman. You better lay there because I'm going to knock the shit out of you. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, what the hell? Like, I look over at Rodney like, help me, man. He's like, I'm married to him, man. How you think I feel? Holy shit.
Jazz, we had no women. We tried to, I said, Jazz, you got a friend that may be interested. She brought a friend in, and I had no heart, didn't want to learn.
None.
And so Jazz had no choice but to train with men.
And boy, did she ever.
She learned how to wrestle like a man.
She did. I mean, she was in there taking suplex, power bomb, and lariats, anything you want to do. I mean, she was taking it all. And the one day that I took it light on her, no, I learned my lesson, man. Yeah. She said, "Don't treat me like that. I'm a wrestler. I'm not. When I'm in this ring, I'm one of you. I'm not, a girl. Don't powder puff me because I'm gonna knock the shit out of you if you do." Okay. All right.
I can remember Rodney coming to me and he said, "Hey, look, man." Jazz really upset me last night. Can I get a couple of suplexes in?
But man, a testament to their relationship, man. Jazz and Rodney have been together when she was at ECW and he wasn't, and then she was at WWE and he wasn't. He went to WWE and she went to all these through the years. It's hard enough, man, being married to somebody in the business. I mean, so you got a stay-at-home wife. Hardest thing in the world is to be married to a guy in the business. You talk about a couple that's both in the business. I mean, their relationship is a testimony, man. And I love them. They're my family, but their relationship is inspirational to last this long in this business and have a great family and a great relationship is monumental. I mean, got to respect that, man. I mean, they're inspirational to me,
Right. Jazz is your sister, then.
Absolutely. I mean, they're my family. I mean, I broke in with them and, got hard weighed by Rodney, busted my cherry. I mean, so it's family. I mean, we all started off in that hot ass metal building in Louisiana, paying our dues. And, we lifted each other. We were all our own little clique. Me, Pop, Rodney, and Jazz were our own little clique. There might have been other students there, whatever, but they weren't part of the clique. It was just, we weren't.
Well, you're leaving out Shano.
I don't like Shano. Piss on him,
He was in the clique, though.
He was no, and it was after. No, he came later. Like if Ursula he came way after me and Jazz and Rodney. He came way after us.
Well, he came. That's when we were in Louisiana. That's when we started the school of Gulfport. When he came.
Well, like I said, there's a difference between a wrestler and a sports entertainer. That's all I'm saying.
So I do my research, like I talked to you off air. And of course, obviously, I talked to your son, Goth Black, Rugged Price.
Scott, I don't mean to cut you off, but when we were talking before we got on air, and you said family, I was like, oh, I kind of had that wrapped in my mind. I'm sorry.
But I did some research. I did, Mr. Black wasn't the only one I reached out to. Yeah. So I heard there was a guy that is the most over but humble in Texas. How popular would you say Jaden Frost is?
You're not talking about jamming Richard Jennings, are you?
Well, Jaden Frost absent sent me that. So if that's who it is, that's who it is, man. So what's your thoughts on this young man? Or
I should have beat him up and ran him out of the business 30 years ago when I started training him. Now look at this guy. His ego is like this. He thinks he's drawing. And now I'm going to go run a school for him and work for him. How desperate am I?
How desperate you are. I don't know. So I also want to talk to you about, this is pretty cool. One of my favorite topics that I talked with Goth Black is interesting to me. One of my favorites is Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I want to hear what your experience was.
Uncle Steve.
Uncle Steve. I see him on TV, you know, and that's the rattlesnake, the hardcore son of a bitch. What was your experience with that guy?
With Steve, met him at the Sportatorium. Jarrett and Chris Adams thought it'd be a good idea because honestly, we were so, our chemistry, personalities were very similar, so much, and they put us together, and we started watching tape, and they'd use it at the Sportatorium. Gary Hart was running. He'd use us. Chris Adams would use us, and Killer Tim Brooks would use us. So we were getting a lot of work, and I worked for Tom Jones in Oklahoma a lot too. And we'd go up there and work. So we stayed busy, but we had a good chemistry together. You know, I've gotten so much heat, like, oh, you work just like Stone Cold. I go, no, truthfully, Stone Cold works like me.
There you go.
But we were the same. I mean, I love Steve. I'm so happy for him. Nobody's happier for him than me, man.
So NWA Texas Heavyweight title, you won that title in 1998, but you're stripped of it because you refused to pay a fine. What's the real story about that?
And who was that for?
That's for you.
Who? Say that again, Scott. Who was I working for? I'm sorry.
NWA Texas?
That was Ken Taylor, I think. And, you know, they always say, oh, these big, Ken Taylor went on a big role about, you know, so-and-so was his first heavyweight champion, or he was talking about it. You know, I was his first heavyweight champion. We were in, I can't remember the building, but he was in a wonderful building the first time he started running. And the only reason I went to the NWA was to get Rodney in the door up there. Because we were living in Lafayette, and he was running in Dallas, which from Lafayette's about 6 hours. It wasn't bad. And then had a great building, had a great crowd. I mean, everything was hot, you know. And I was over, and he really didn't have any choice, you know. I was over, and he put me in with. He brought in Dan Severin, and I you know, he fed some people to me, and it was a good time, and I enjoyed it. But for me, it was getting to be that drive was getting old because he lost the building in Dallas and then had to restart in Fort Worth. And when he restarted in Fort Worth, the building wasn't a wrestling building at all. It was horrible. And to restart and redo, plus it was another almost 2 hours drive to get to that building. So Rodney and I would drive up straight 8 hours, work, get back in the car, stop and get gas, throw something down our throat, would be back Sunday. And by that time I had a full-time job. I was working locally during the week, but I was home every night. Saturdays I had to go to Fort. That's 16 hours, man. I got home Sunday morning, like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm dead. So once Rodney got his foot in the door, I said, look, I may be the champ, but I'm done. I didn't tell Ken. I just said, hey, Rodney, you're in the door, run with it. And that's the story.
Okay. All right.
You see, one thing about the name Price, that equals heat max.
I get it.
You know, if I had it all over again, my last name would be Austin. Let me go ahead and tell you right now. You know?
I can sense that. I can sense it, man. I was like, damn.
I'll tell you a funny story. Ron Simmons and my dad go way back, all the way to Africa. Was it WCW? You guys were roommates in Africa?
Yeah.
Right?
South
Right.
Africa.
What's that?
South Africa.
Yeah, right. And so I'm down at deep south of McDonough, Georgia, which was a training facility for WWE before there was NXT. It was before there was Florida Championship Wrestling. This was Jody Hamilton, the assassin, was running it. Not Steven Regal, but Dave Taylor was one of the trainers. Bill DeMott was one of the trainers. Bill DeMott. But anyway, so, I'm down there, I get the heat, man. Like, well, you're not hiring me, anyway. So we went over on my podcast, my feelings about Bill and why, But, so we're down there and they're having this show and like Malenko's down there, Benoit's down there, Ron is down there. Like it's like one of those shows where everybody's down at Deep South, watching or whatever and talking and everything. So I get a match against, they're like, okay, we go out there. And, you go out there and you're going to work this guy named Mike Mizanin. I'm like, okay, Mike Mizanin, The Miz, this is before he, down there. And he's walking around like he's a superstar already because of MTV, like he walked up to me and Gangrel first day there. He's like, hi, I'm Mike Mizanin from MTV Road Rules and MTV. And Gangrel goes, get the fuck, I don't give a fuck about your resume. Get the fuck out of my face. I was just like, he was just that guy. So Jody's like, all right, you guys go out there, like 2-minute match, Miz, he's going to come from behind and get on you. You take a beat down for a minute. You're going to make the big baby face come back, piss and vinegar, 1 minute heat on him, hit the finish, 1, 2, 3, boom. All right, I'm already putting this asshole over, and I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. So we go out there, man, and I come from behind. He's taking off his robe, and he fires up like Terry fucking Von Erich. Like, no soul, my shit, just, so this 2-minute match turned into 12 minutes of me kicking the shit out of him, He tries to go up and wrap, I'm pulling back down. I mean, I'm beating his ass, fuck you, And like everybody's like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, this guy's been in the business for a cup of coffee. At this point, I've been in the business 15 years, piss on you, And, we beat him, I throw him in the ring. I'm like, duck the clothesline, hit your shitty finish, And he hit his finish, 1, 2, 3. I stood right up, no soul, that walked back. Jody's back there, fucking just steam coming out of his ears, Get in here, and he pulls me in the office. What the hell are you doing? I said, Jody, you saw what happened. He's like, I know, I'm about to chew his ass too, believe me. He's like, but this asshole's under contract. Vince thinks he's going to be a star, which he wound up being. So, he's like, he's under contract. You're developmental. You jumping in my ass or whatever. So he's like, I'm going to chew his ass too and blah, blah, blah. And so I go out there. I'm kind of sitting there with a whipped dog look, and Ron Simmons walks over. Hey, man, what the hell happened out there? I said, Ron, you saw what happened. I said, he's supposed to sell for me for a minute. He no sold. And, talked to Melissa, gave him a receipt, and Ron kind of laughed. He said, Jody got in your ass because he had to, right? Jody would have done the same damn thing. I'd have done the same damn thing. He's like, he got in your ass in his office. He had to get in your ass. I said, I understand that. He said, looked at me, said, man, the apple don't fall far from the tree, does it? I'm like, Ron, and, he said, I'll never forget. He said, but let me tell you something, kid. You did the right thing. You did the right thing. I said, okay, Ron. He said, you know why? I'm like, well, I could guess. He's like, let me tell you why you did the right thing. Ain't a motherfucker in this room ever no sell your shit again. True to form, man. Like Ron was like, you did the right, no, man, let's go have a cigar. You did the right thing. Fuck you, so it was just like, like I said, old school, man. I mean, for my pop, like when I broke in, man, you had to earn it, man. I mean, I puked, I passed out. I mean, all the shit I paid my dues driving, like my dad said, hours over Lake Pontchartrain to train, going to work, getting 2 hours of sleep. I mean, and then I get this kid coming in because he's been on MTV reality thinking he's going to, like I say, to his credit, I mean, look at him, man, whatever. But when he's down there, he's brand new in the business. He's walking around like he's cock of the walk. You ain't earned that, man. And nobody liked him. Bradshaw made him get dressed in a broom closet. When he was there forever, like he wouldn't even allow to get dressed in the locker room, how much heat he had, when he first got there. So, just like, Ron's like, you did the right thing. Said, you just like your daddy, man. Just like your daddy.
Nice.
All right. I'll take that,
Yeah. So, Rodney, man, you had some feuds, right? You had some feuds against Tommy Dreamer, New Jack, and Rob Van Dam.
Yes.
What of those feuds do you remember the most? And what style do you work better with?
Tommy was easy. Tommy gave me the nickname Hardway. Well, actually, Gang gave me the name. Tommy was the reason why. Because if Tommy and I were going to do a match and I was going to get juice, or we were both getting juice, I never got to use my blade. For some reason, man, Tommy could have picked up like an aluminum foil pie pan and swung it over my head or something, not even hit me. And I would juice. Somehow he would hit me some way with something, and it opened me up all the time. So he opened me up, and Gang's like, oh, he's Hardway now. So working with Tommy was great. I loved that. I love working with Rob. He was a little unpredictable, but he didn't mind. The snugger you worked with him, the better he liked it.
Yep.
I had the opportunity. Paul Lee came up to me and said, "Look, somebody from Japan was looking at Rob to go over there, and they needed a good, stiff, solid match." So I had that match with him, and it was a tough match. And Sabu, he's easy, man. He's going to do this, he's going to do that, he's going to do this. And, you get your heat if you're juicing or if he's juicing, you get it and go. But I enjoy, there's nobody I can say outside of 2 or 3 matches with Chris Adams that I really hated. But every other match I ever had with Al Perez or Butch Reed, it was all enjoyable. I didn't have even Kerry and Kevin Von Erich. I never had trouble with them.
My dad's being modest here. I'm going to go ahead and blow kayfabe on him. He's leaving out part of the story with Rob Van Dam. Paul went to Rob Van Dam for this tape to go to Japan. Said, you can pick anybody in the locker room you want to work. You pick whoever you want to work. He picked my dad because of talent. So my dad's modest. He's not going to say that, but I know the story behind it. Rod had his choice of whoever he wanted. Sabu, Tommy, Taz, whoever. And Heyman said, pick whoever you want. And he picked my dad. So I think that says a lot.
That's awesome. So I got somebody in the chat. I asked if you knew this guy, John Saxon. You said you don't remember his name.
I know John. I know him.
But he has a question for you, man. Ask Rod about the bar football game in South Africa.
We had a lot of time off, and we were at Sun City, I think. Nice resort. And they had a bunch of rugby players there at the time. And we were sitting in the bar. Of course, beer is always involved with great decisions. And I got the idea because these rugby players, they were getting hammered. We were getting hammered. And rugby was on TV. And, at the time, I was like, well, why do you kick the ball? Why don't you run? Why don't you pass it? And I started talking to one of the guys. And I told him, I used to play American football. And he was like, oh, you American football. I was like, all right, it's on. I went to the bar and got like 4 white bar towels and folded them up and made the best football I could make. I went over there. I got my guys. I went over there and I challenged them. I said, we're playing American football. And they're like, where? I go, right here. So we moved all the tables, all the chairs back, made end zones. And we went at it. And, man, we beat them to death. I mean, physically, with the score, we pounded those. They walked away. Afterwards, when the manager and the police came to see what was going on, and they were like, oh, they thought we were fighting. But they came and everything calmed down. We moved all the tables and chairs back. And they bought us beer for the rest of the night. They were like, wow, American football. I had a new respect for the game.
Ask my dad the story about Devon Dudley and the rubber snake.
Well, you know it better because Devon he wouldn't talk to me for about 2 weeks after.
I'm at TNA doing a dark match one night or something, and the Dudleys are there, and the Steiners. I knew the Steiners from I worked with them at WCW, so we're all hanging out or whatever. And I'm talking to Bubba Ray and Devon because my dad worked with them at ECW, and talking, hanging out, and all this stuff. And Devon comes in, man, let me tell you a story about your damn daddy. I'm like, okay. He said they were in I think it might have been Florida. I don't know, some hotel, Holly, like way up on the top floor, like way up there, Yeah. And Pop had got like a rubber snake because Devon is deathly afraid of snakes. Devon said, man, I'm a black man from New York. I ain't never seen no damn snake in real life. He's petrified of them. So my dad puts this rubber snake around like the plant on the balcony, the plastic, like wraps it around there, whatever. And they put Devon out on the balcony and they lock him out there. He's like, all right, guys, very funny, whatever. And they're like pointing, and he looks over, And Devon he's like, man, I was screaming like a bitch. He's like, over there, goddamn. He's like, beating on the door. He's like, I was so pissed. He's like, I didn't talk to your dad for like 2 weeks, man. He's like, I was so pissed off. He's like, I was about ready to jump. I was literally about ready to jump off the balcony. And he said, until he's like, no, it ain't real, or whatever. And he's like, man, fuck your dad. He's like, your dad goes, come on, Devon. No, fuck you, Rod. Fuck you, Rod. I ain't talking for 2 weeks over that. He said, man, I'm about pissed myself. I'm ready to jump off this balcony because I thought that rubber snake was real.
Nice.
Well, Jack Victory had a lot of part in that too. So
Yeah, I heard.
Kind of co-conspiracy.
John Saxon says Rod was some of the smoothest matches I've ever had. So that's a compliment.
Absolutely. I worked with John a lot, and we had a lot of good matches, man. A lot of good times in Homa, a lot of good times in Morgan City, Cutoff, Galliano. Had a wonderful card. I mean, we used Gang. Gang was on there all the time. It was a good time. John, I appreciate John. I respect him so much. And as a worker, he was a good worker, man.
Right now, so he's in a promotion over here in Panama City, XIW Extreme Impact Wrestling, and he's one of those guys that is a thorn in my side, and he's a heel manager, and he does a damn good job at being a heel manager. But we call him Papa Smurf because he comes out in this freaking stupid looking blue jumpsuit with a whistle. So no, John and I go way back. We go to
That's perfect. Perfect.
I'm going to see him on the 21st in Panama City at Pain as a Price. So that's where. So John and I know
you remember that story about Gang? That time he's booked on a show. I'm sure once you'll remember it. Gang was booked on a show. My dad was booking, I think it was casinos in Mississippi or so. I can't, just foggy, but we were doing a show. And Gang was on the show, and my dad had, brought in some younger talent to give him a chance or whatever. And we're sitting there in the back, and Gang walks in, and this kid, just like 5'9", 160 pounds, whatever, high flyer kid, goes up to Gang. He said, "Hey man, I'm working tonight, so how about we start off and I'll springboard off the ropes into a reverse Frankensteiner to a tornado DDT." And Gang's looking at us like, you ribbing me, right? Like he's looking around like you're ribbing, like it's a joke. And we're just like, no, like I don't know where it's coming from. And this kid goes on for 10 minutes of the most stupid shit you ever heard in your life. And he looks at Gang and he says, "Well, what do you think, man?" And Gang goes, "Yeah, we could do that. Oh, you know what? I know what we can do. I'm just gonna beat the fuck out of you for 15 minutes," and walked off. And the kid was like, "Is he ribbing me?" I'm like, "No, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna go back." You remember that, Pop?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that Gang story. I also remember a young child of mine asking Gang for either an autograph or a picture. It might have been both.
I was green to the grass, man, and like my first match ever. And Gang's my partner, like being a mark for the business so I could walk. Like Gang is like, I'm tagging with one man freaking Gang. So I'm green as piss. I don't know how the business works. I'm trying to learn stuff. So he goes back in the locker room. I'm like, "Sir, a pleasure to meet you. I'm so honored to be tagging Gang." He's like, "Oh, no problem." Look, I said, "Can I get a picture of you, the autograph?" And my dad's like, "Fucking Mark," So I learned really quick about how the business works, man. He just like look on his face.
Thought it was a rib. Gang goes, "Is he for real?"
Gang took to my dad and said, "Come on, Rod. We were all green one time. Kids got like Gang actually kind of took up for me, And to his credit, man, Gang, my first, time in the business, he took me under his wing. He taught me so much. He out of respect for my dad, or maybe because he liked me, or a combination of both. But he really took me under his wing. He helped me learn psychology. He taught me how to work a big guy style. Like Gang really went out of his way to take care of me, protect me in the business, and teach me. And I'll never forget that. I'll always be grateful to Gang for that. He really, took a green kid and said, "You know what? Well, let me sit under the tree here, kid. Let me teach you some things." And I'll always be grateful for that. Always.
Absolutely.
Too funny, man.
Got anything, Rudy, before it's
No, man. I'm just enjoying the stories.
Absolutely.
So that's old school wrestling right there.
Let's talk about ECW, man. What was the most memorable? From what I watched in the ECW, the crowds and the chaos that all ensued with every single damn event that ECW put on. What was one of your most memorable ECW crowd interactions out in Philly?
The Philly, that that bingo hall, Viking Hall. What a place, man! What a crowd. They just Dreamer told me, he said, man, when we first began, we had to get people in here. We had to give away beer and hot dogs to get people to come in.
Yep.
And I mean, that's how they built that crowd, and they sold that style of wrestling to that home base, and from there it caught fire, man.
And
We it was, Philly crowd. If somebody missed a spot, you effed up.
they let you know. They let you know.
Or if you were doing like an old school spot, the crowd would call the spot. If you got him to tackle, he's being dropped down, get it again. So
Remember the chant of Francine? She's a crack whore. ECW is something else, man.
They were brutal,
and they still, in testimony, they still chant ECW today. That tells you what an impression it made. It was lightning in a bottle, never to be recreated, duplicated, and just watching my dad wrestle there, watching those guys, and just being blown away. Like I said, they still chant the name today. That says something, that they're still out there, chanting that name. When somebody does a high spot or goes to a table off a ladder, they don't chant, WWE. They chant ECW every time,
One of my favorite memories, and Jack Victor will probably disagree, but it was pay-per-view November to Remember, and we were in, I think, at Lakefront Arena in New Orleans.
Lakefront.
And the finish was Jack was going to take a DDT from Jake the Snake, and something happened. Jack slipped or something. He broke his leg out there, and I'm watching with Paul Lee, and I'm like, Jack's hurt, and Paulie's like, no way, man. Jack's way tougher than that. He can't be. I said, Jack's hurt, or he would be up. I mean, the finish is coming in. He's like, oh, man. I go, let me run in there, and I'll take the DDT from Jake. He's like, go. So here I come. I run in. I think I threw a punch at Jake, and Jake knew and hit me with the DDT. But Jake wasn't surprised at all. Jake was such a pro. He knew something was up, and he didn't miss a beat. Because, I think I'm trying to give Morse code with blinking with my eyes, but he knew Jack was hurt. And that crowd, I don't know, they were crazy. They went nuts. They thought it was part of the show. Jack, we helped Jack back, and man, he'd broken his leg bad. He was in a cast for a long time with that.
Wow.
But for me, it was a fun memory, but for Jack, I'm sure it wasn't. But
right on. So, who's the hardest hitter on that in ECW back in the day?
Terry Funk.
Funk, as far as chair shots, Balls Mahoney.
Yeah.
He could swing a chair. But in fact, I told Dreamer, I think I worked in 2 nights in a row taking chair shots. He's like, Rod, I want you to work with Balls again. And he's like, oh, yeah, chair shot. I was looking at Dreamer and go, no way.
So that leads to my random question I ask on my podcast. Would you rather take a chair shot from Balls Mahoney or step on Legos?
I think Balls Mahoney.
I took the Legos when he asked me, man. I took the Legos.
I don't know. Gang hit me with the chair so hard, man. He hit me in the back. He didn't hit me in the head. He hit me in the back. And I thought I was going to be paralyzed, man. I had electricity running down my legs. I was like, holy crap. Do I owe you money, gang?
So talk to us about the dark match that you had with The Rock back in 1997.
There was a lot more than one match.
came in and they wanted me to work him on Raw, and then they switched it to a dark match. It had 3 minutes to get him over. You can't.
So when you worked him like that, did you know that he'd be as big as he is now?
I did. I really thought he was one of those guys. I'd been watching him, and he was just one of those guys. He was starting. By that time, The Rock was coming out. His persona, his charisma, man, it was just oozing. And I may have got 30 seconds of heat on him and then took it home. But he rolled me up in the middle of the ring and said, "Thank you, brother." And, that's old school respect right there.
He's a good guy, man. Years later, I met DJ Rock, whatever you want to call him, and I just walked up and said, "Hey, man, I just want to introduce myself, pay my respects. I'm Logan Price." And I said, my dad. He's like, "Who's your dad?" I said, "Rod Price." He's like, "Son of a bitch, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my dad." He's like, "Man, he's like, tell your father I said hello. Please give him my best." Man, he said, "Your dad helped me out a lot in the beginning, man. I'll never forget that. I'll always be grateful." Like, such a nice guy, Awesome. And I said, "Man, thanks, DJ. I really appreciate that." But man, your dad's a class act, man. He helped me when I was green, and I wouldn't have learned what I learned if it wasn't for him. I'll forever be grateful for him working with me like that. And I thought that was really cool, man. That's how humble and cool he really is,
Awesome.
Right.
Immediately, as soon as I said Logan Price, Rod's my dad, he knew exactly,
So another thing from John Saxon. John says, "I saw Rod break a metal chair on Amos Moses after some heat over the ring." Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. In fact, that's why we moved from Lafayette to Slidell, Louisiana. Well,
that's why we moved, he says. That's why we moved.
Well, ECW was in between there, but I was using Amos's ring, and I told him, "Look, I want to buy the ring from you." So, I'm giving him money, and I gave him $300 one night, and then that was like on a Friday night. We were in a casino, Marksville, Louisiana casino. And Saturday or Sunday, when we went to train, he had picked up the ring and sold it to somebody else. I was like, okay, I couldn't do anything about it then. Had to eat a lot of money or lose a lot of money because lost students, but it was like, okay. And lo and behold, we get booked in Cutoff, Louisiana. And he said, "Oh, you're working Amos Moses." And I said, "Absolutely."
Receipt.
And there was a bottle in the ring, and he was like thinking, "Oh man, Amos." You could see the fear on his face. He thought I was going to crack him at the bottle, and I was like, "Oh no!" Rolled it out. I picked up a chair, and I swung like Mark McGuire, man. I swung with everything I had, cracked him with it, broke the chair, but a little payback for sure.
You wonder where I get it from, right?
Yeah. Now I know.
I'll tell guys, man, like when I'm working, I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and apologize now because I work snug as – give it back." I expect to get what I give, but seeing the leg slapping bullshit, the limp wristed clotheslines, man, I can't do that. I tell guys, man, I'd rather have you lay it in than make it look like piss, When I was at WCW, I worked mean, Haku, whatever you call him the first time. I was petrified. That guy's the baddest guy ever in the business, and he just told me, he said, "Brother, lay it in. Don't give me no pussy shit. Lay it in." I'm like, okay. And I went out there, man, and he laid it in, brother. Let me tell you, I knew he was there. But I gave it back to him, man. We got backstage and he had respect. He gave me the rub, like told Sarge, I work him anytime, brother. I'm still great friends with him to this day. We talk like shit every couple of weeks, and I always thank him for not killing me, because I could do what he wanted to,
Well, that's always a wise thing.
Yeah, he just told me, he said, "Man, you always show everybody respect, and I see that." He's in cater. I'd be like, "How are you, sir?" Get the fuck away from him, "See you, sir." And he just, he told me, he said, "I see how you treat people. You respect everybody. You thank everybody." He said, "That goes a long way with me." And he told me, I'll never forget this. He told me this, and it's like my moniker, my catchphrase, whatever you call it. He's that thick Samoan accent. "Brother, let me tell you something. Respect in this business is earned. It's not given. Yes, sir. Earning respect very hard. He said, being taught respect, be very painful. I was like, you got it, boss, So I learned that early on.
Well, that's what's wrong with the business now.
Oh, man, don't get me started. It's like Sarge, that's one thing I'm glad I was brought in old school. Like my dad, old school Sarge, my dad trained by Red Bastien, Sarge trained by Jody Hamilton. I mean, it's that family tree, of where you were and who trained you and everything else, man. And I'm so glad that I got in when I did and was able to do what I do. Because now, man, guys don't ride. If they ride with each other, they're like this on their phone or Nintendo or whatever. Man, when I was in the car, guys, I was ears open taking notes. Learning. And that's back then. It's not that way anymore. Like but they call it busy be married to a guy, so to speak. You'd be working him for, the entire 3 or 4 months. You work with one guy every night, every other night. You're married up to him, a veteran or something. You learn. And these kids today, man, they just, they think, oh, I'm in the locker room with, Bobby Eaton. I'm just as big a star as he. No, you're not. No, you're not. Or they think they're equal. They haven't earned it. They, and that's millennials in general, man. I'm going to say it. It isn't wrestling or whatever. It's that sense of self-entitlement, and that's in the wrestling business. It's been allowed to happen. Like guys wearing. One thing I hate is guys wearing tennis shoes and jogging pants in the ring, street gear in the ring. I mean, like Sarge used to say, if you're dressed like you're sitting in the crowd, maybe that's where you should be. And I just always let your gimmick calls for you to be a, hillbilly Jim wearing overalls or whatever. Guys out there in like tennis shoes and jogging pants. I think that shit's on the business, man. I think it makes it look like a bunch of asshole yardies. My opinion.
Scott, can we? You got a moot button for Logan?
Nuclear heat, baby, nuclear heat.
So John said he did a radio show years ago and JBL was on it. They always say heels don't draw money, but JBL said Rod was a heel that drew money at the Sportatorium in Dallas. So you are well known and you put up, I think your son said it, respect. You give respect to the business, you get respect to the business. And
absolutely,
one thing I've learned from your son and I've learned from you here just recently, and I talk to Rudy about this all the time, back in the day, from what I'm not a pro wrestler. I don't ever think I'll never be in the ring, but I know the business through the podcast, and I love talking to legends and old school people like you guys, because the one thing they say is the same thing you guys have said. You get the respect if you give the respect. It's a simple philosophy.
No, nobody has psychology anymore. It's high spot after high spot. I remember heard an interview one time with Shawn Michaels. I'll never forget. And Rudy obviously knows Shawn very well, and they're 18 super kicks in a match, and obviously they got a lot of your stuff. What do you think about that? I remember Shawn said, "Yeah, they throw 14 super kicks in a match, and the guy kicks out on one." He said, "I did it one time, and they never kicked out."
Right.
There you go.
So you went to Germany and Japan. So that style of wrestling, that style of wrestling over there is different than over here, I presume. So what was the biggest difference that you had to do after you leaving Japan to come back to the States?
I don't know. I guess loosen up a little bit. I worked snug. I never hurt anybody. I never hit anybody in the face. I just worked tight.
Really?
And Al Perez used to I knew how to work a light. I don't know. With Al, he would teach me, it's like, you barely feel each other there and all that. And I stiffed him for, 2 or 3 weeks. And then I worked real light with him, and came out of the match. He was like, wow. I was like, I can do it. And we worked the next night, and I worked real light with him, and then I just stiffed him. And I got a receipt back from him, too, believe me.
Oh, yeah.
But Japan was more of a contest. They weren't cheering the whole match. If you did something athletic or good move, good spot, they would cheer. In Germany, they went by rounds. You know, you'd wrestle. The the ring announcer would pick up a pencil, and the referee knew the round was almost over. So you were doing different high spots more at the end of the round. If you were a heel, even though the bell rang, you'd still hit him. And they'd work the fine gimmick where the referee would fine you, and people would pay your fine for you, and then you'd split the money in the back. So it was cool that way. But I worked with so many people: Finley, Taylor, PN News, Grizz. I worked with him so much, and I worked with Knobs came over. Tony Roma, is that right? God, I'm butchering his name. I can't think of his name. He was tagged with Hercules Hernandez.
Paul Roma.
I think that was Tony Roma.
Okay.
No, Paul Roma.
Paul Roma. Okay.
Sorry, Tony. I'm thinking of the quarterback. Oh my. But Paul came over. I didn't work with him. I was like his manager. He had a match with one of their top baby faces over there. It might have been Franzel or Tony St. Clair, but worked as a manager, just selling everything, and had a good time. In fact, Paul came over a couple of times. He came over in the beginning. He came over at the end. It was a good guy, good worker, man. Can't say enough about him.
All right, so we're gonna go kind of like a shoot kind of question. So real quick ones. You prefer to call the spots in the ring, or do you prefer to lay out the entire match before you go?
I only know. Give me a finish. We'll work it out in the ring.
Okay. Now your son, I'm not let him talk because he can go on hours for this one, but he gave me a name that he cannot stand, and his name is I know him as Matt Cardona. So is there anybody out there in the world, in the business today, that you would have beef with, or you're like, come on, dude, you're wasting my time?
Not really. I think me and Lawler had a little heat for a while, but there's so much water under that bridge that we're getting too old to carry grudges, and I don't believe in carrying a grudge either. Anyway.
What about who's the favorite person to ride in the car with?
Oh man, I think my old partner Hollywood John Tatum was had to be one of the top of the list because there was never a dull moment with him. And you throw in Gary Young with that's a party there, man.
Mr. Saxon says Lawler incident.
Which one?
I rode a lot with Akbar. Akbar was like, wherever we went, I could give you the history. If we were going through Vicksburg, man, he could tell you the history of Vicksburg. It was always, I loved riding with Ak, man.
But your Mount Rushmore, all time.
Ooh. Well, I've got, for me, it's definitely Hogan's on it, Ric Flair, Steve Austin. Probably, Undertaker, and if I could add on, it would be The Rock.
What do you think about that band's Shotgun Savior? You ever heard of them?
Yeah, that's the worst music I've ever heard.
I thought so.
You know what? The band's good. They just need a good lead singer.
Right.
Under the bus, bury me, I enjoy it. Logan, he sends me, whenever they cut a video or cut a track, he always sends it to me. And I listen to it with my wife, It's like, I enjoy it. I really do.
Yeah, he throws me under the bus and puts my wife over. That's the way it works.
Right. I heard that.
That's
too.
where the talent's at, son.
Right. Why do you think I'm riding her coat?
Everybody's got to have a gimmick.
Heel or face?
Heel. Definitely heel.
Oh yeah.
Okay. When you hear the words "fake as fuck," What do you think when people say wrestling?
Every time I turn on WWE or AEW, it's horrible. Yeah, I don't know what the finishes is, but I can call every spot because they telegraph it. It's like they're, like the old dance cards where you put down feet, and that's what they're following. There's no smoothness. There's no motion with it. There's no ad lib. You can totally read the script.
And they've got talented people, man. I mean,
the athletes, they are talented. It's just
put the chains on them, man. I mean, the guys from Japan, Shinsuke Nakamura came over there. Shinsuke's phenomenal. Gets over here, they put the chains on him. We love what you do. We're going to hire you, but don't do what you do. Do what we tell you to do. And look what it did to him. We got countless people from, Japan or whatever. They got some incredibly talented people. Take the chains off of them, man. Let them call it in the ring. Stop choreographing out let them do what they do. Let them do what you brought them there for,
Well, it would help if they do house shows.
Yeah, they don't hardly do those anymore at all,
Nope, they don't. That makes
That's where you learn.
They used to come over here to Pensacola and do a Road to WrestleMania house show. They don't do that anymore. They don't do any of that.
Right.
Since TKO took over, we don't get any of that. And then the prices to WrestleMania are like $1,000.
Oh, man.
Let's stop letting the boys learn the craft, and we'll just raise our prices on the views.
I always thought that they need to. The writers are all soap opera writers, man. Guys that wrote, white trash TV soap operas. Let some of the boys that are retired, Dusty used to write stuff all the time, man. The guys that are the veterans that understand the business, not some guy that wrote for the young and the restless. That's where I think is a big part. You need to have the boys being the writers, not guys that did soap operas and sitcoms.
Well, my problem with that is I don't think they could follow it. If you told outside of a few, here's your finish, call it in the ring, they wouldn't.
Oh, they'd be lost. Yeah. I mean, I see guys now choreographing stuff out, man. They'll send emails to each other a week before the show, planning out the match, and it's just like, wow,
Toughest opponent.
Oh, man. I wrestled Jim Powers. I think he was one of the toughest guys that I ever wrestled, just because he was so strong, man. He was a phenomenal athlete. But I had a good match with him, and it was just you had to fight for everything you got, which was okay, but I'm glad I never got married to him for like 6 months, where I had to work him every night.
John Saxon says Jeep Swenson.
Jeep was a massive man, and I personally he couldn't work his way out of a paper bag, but he had the look, had those gigantic arms, just huge, but he was easy.
So one of the last questions I'd like to ask my guests on their show is, if you could pick any wrestler from any area and have one last match, who would it be and why?
Well, I'd like to go back in time, man, and I would love to work Nick Bockwinkel. I mean, he was a phenomenal athlete. I know he got heat with the boys, but as far as when he was working, absolutely, he's one of my top guys. Probably Gorgeous George, just because it would have been such an easy match because he was so over. So back in the day. And plus, back then you could do a headlock for 30 minutes.
So Gorgeous George, is that were you back when you were a California stud? Is that when you would have done that or not?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
So when you were a California stud, back when you first started, who were some of the people you wrestled back then?
I wrestled under one. I came out and they said, "What's your name?" And me being the genius I was back then in green, I said, I'm a California stud. So Gary Hart told me, look, we're gonna use the California stud, but we're gonna name you Rugged Rod. You're Rugged Rod Price from here on out. The California stud. So under that banner, I wrestled everybody as Rugged Rod, but I was the California stud in the introductions.
I mean, that was a pretty good advertisement that Rudy Gonzalez has, the Rugged Stud, the Rugged Rod.
Yeah, like, you did the graphics, Rudy.
Yeah, on that one, I will not claim that. I will not claim that at all.
Hey,
I did it. I did
like it. I like it. I mean,
yeah, I've been experimenting with AI, so I just put some stuff together real quick.
That's cool.
And I liked it. I mean,
I like it.
I liked it.
I'll tell you right now, Rudy and I, man, I was scrolling on Facebook, and I seen something you posted, and I just sent him a message, probably at like 11 o'clock. I'm like, my wife said, you shouldn't message people that late. I'm like, whatever, dude, I don't care. And I messaged him, and we ended up started talking, and he shared me part of his career, and I was like, this dude, I need somebody to do a show on Mondays. He goes, I'll do it, and we've been doing it ever since. So
awesome.
Rudy, man, he's been a blessing to this, to our podcast and stuff like that.
That's great. That's great, man.
My last question I have for you, sir, is if you had to give advice to the up and coming, or go back and give advice to Goth Black, what would it be? Both. What would that key piece of advice be to those that want to get into business?
Play the game more. Wrestling's about that much of the business, and there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. And I was never ever a suck up. I didn't, I wasn't gonna kiss your butt to be in your clique. That's just not the way I was. But I could have handled business a lot better if I had a better attitude, at a young age. But to go back and tell my young son, play the game better.
All right. So
I'm not real good at kissing ass or politicking either. It runs in the genes, man. I just I want to say something really quick. I'm going to put my dad on the spot here because that's what we do. Yeah. But I can say this: throughout my entire career, everybody I've ever met, from Tommy Dreamer to Undertaker to Rob Van Dam to you name it, everybody I've ever met, The Rock, has always said the same thing. Man, your dad's one of the best workers ever laced a pair of boots. But the thing that really, they talk about how good he's in the ring, but they said, man, and you know what? If there was ever one of the boys, it's your dad. Like, that to me means so much. They always compliment his talent, but they always say, man, he's one of the boys. He's a man's man. He's one of the boys. And that's from Triple H on down. I've heard it from all of them, and that just, that always meant a lot to me, and people always ask me, they're like, my dad is my hero. I mean, pretty obvious, and, I get these podcasts where they say, man, your heyday and your dad's heyday, you were facing each other. My dad had kicked my ass, I was like, he's just that good, man. I accepted a long time ago. I'll never be the worker my dad is. He's just that good. It's just reality. But I always say, if I could be half the man he is, then I truly will have accomplished something,
I'm very proud of you, son. I love you so much.
Love you too, Pop.
I gotta tell you, man. I lost my dad in November. And
oh man, I'm sorry.
Man. No. Just to hearing you guys say that, Logan, I'm gonna call you Logan, man. Logan, just because when you said that means a lot to me, and unfortunately, you don't see that. You don't see people recognizing their father as much as we should.
I mean, he's my hero, man. Inside the ring,
yes.
Outside of the ring, he's my hero. Always has been.
So when I'm telling you the truth, Rodney, when Goth Black heard that you're going to be on the show, he says, "Some bitch." He goes, "I'm going to be on that show." He goes, "I'll wait 10 minutes in the waiting room, but bring me on because I got things to say." And True to form, he had everything to say. That's what I love about the podcast. That on Monday night,
it's such a blessing, man. Like I said, I kind of had it in the back of my mind when you said, "Boy, I talk to family." I researched Google. I was like, I was almost going to ask you, Scott, did you call Logan?
So I'm going to close the show. Please don't go anywhere. The song's going to play, but I want to talk to you guys off camera.
Sure.
Before.
And I love that song. That song is awesome. Thank you.
I was going to say, it sounds familiar.
I can figure it out, right? So, Huge Pop Entertainment, Rudy Boy Gonzalez, thank you for being my partner of crime. I can't say it enough.
Thank you, Rudy.
Goth Black, man, thanks for making that special appearance.
My honor, my privilege. Anytime I can steal heat from my daddy, I'm gonna do it, man.
And
he taught me well.
Ultimately, Rugged Rodney Price, man, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you, Rudy.
The stories. Like I told Goth on Wednesday, you got to come back on because I didn't even touch half of the questions I wanted to touch. So I'd love to have you back on the show a few months down the road. Let's work something out. So, but it's been a pleasure, you guys.
Thank you.
But we are Huge Pop Entertainment, and we're out.